right, guys. Welcome to episode 2, season 3 of Choked Out Radio. A lot to talk about in this particular episode. This particular episode was inspired by Vice's their season debut of The Dark Side of the Ring, with debuting with talking about or discussing Chris Benoit. Right, Chris Benoit, as you know, was a world-renowned wrestler from all over the world and wrapped up in the WWE, and unfortunately murder suicide in June of 2007. So I'm going to ask you the question, right? We're going to work backwards, right? We're going to start the Hall of Fame, and we'll get into his career, and then we'll talk about the days leading it up into, he was supposed to fight CM Punk, I believe, for the ECW championship in June. So is he HOF? It's tough. I'd say no, right? And obviously because of what he did. But it's a very sensitive topic. You can't put a guy like that in the Hall of Fame. But can you put him? I don't know. I don't know. It's tough. This is how I would see it, right? If the WWE had a physical Hall of Fame, right, I wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame. I'd put him in for like moments, kind of like Barry Bonds, like how he's like, you'll know he'll never be in the Baseball Hall of Fame, but you know his bat will be there because he hit the 700 and whatever home run, right? Or that's those are my 2 cents. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? It's a similar comparison, but what do you think, Rafa?
So the man, Chris Benoit,
right?
Absolutely not.
Right.
His wrestling accomplishments,
right?
Yes,
exactly.
The fact that they are exactly the same person, then, in my opinion, what he did cancels out everything that his career stood for.
Right.
Had it been that he was murdered, like the conspiracy theorists say that Kevin Sullivan had them all killed,
right. Jealousy, jealousy.
Had that been the case, then of course, it was a tragedy he deserves to be in. But the fact that he did what he did, and there was a child involved, and no, absolutely not. He does not belong. Great wrestler, great accomplishments, multi-time world champion, but no, my opinion, absolutely not. And the fact that people fight and argue that he deserves to be in there,
right?
To me, that tells you a lot about people. That they don't. I'm looking at it as a father, like I have a child.
Of course.
This guy killed his kid and killed his wife.
His wife. Right.
They did a good thing by erasing him from everything.
Right. Henry, what are your thoughts? I mean, I'm assuming we're all in agreement that he doesn't deserve to be an HOF, but what are your thoughts on that topic? It's very sensitive.
I mean, you bring up the point that he killed his family, and you don't want a person like that representing your company. And you don't want to glorify someone who has done that. And he accomplished a lot in his time with WWE, and even before that, he had a successful career. And he did a lot for the business. I mean, that's all he did. Yeah. That's all he did. It was wrestle nonstop. Yeah. And if you look at all his matches, he put it all out there. But you don't want to have someone like that in the Hall of Fame, because think about it, how awkward would it be? Like, even when you induct them, you can't really say much other than just speaking of his wrestling career. You can't really talk about the man because of he ended up doing what he did. But it was very sad. The whole story, just what led up to that point. It's just absolutely sad, But yeah, I agree with what you said, though. That was actually a good point. I think eventually WWE should open up a museum.
Like a physical, right?
Open up a museum and have, I guess, like a section where you have all your WrestleMania main events, and
Right, exactly.
won the championship at that WrestleMania, and you can just mention him there
Exactly.
because if you think about it, that WrestleMania 20, that finish, and having him and Eddie hug it out at the
Yeah.
Garden, it was one of the most iconic moments in the history of the business.
Yeah.
But you cannot keep Benoit out of, like, you can't erase him from the history book because
Right.
he accomplished so much. And not only that, he was intertwined with other wrestlers' careers, so
Yeah.
you have to mention. But yeah, at the end of the day, like I don't think he's gonna get inducted at all. I don't think he should.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you 100%.
I like the idea of like if there was a physical Hall of Fame, yeah, you could probably have like his boots from this match, or like
Or something like that.
yeah, like the belt that he carried in WrestleMania 20, like together with Eddie, but like him by himself, like at Access. You know how Access they have like specific um exhibits for wrestlers. Like they had the
Yep.
Andre one, they had the one for like Macho Man, or like the dress that Miss Elizabeth wore, whatever,
Right.
something like that. But it had to be
Something
like
simple.
in a group setting. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
exactly.
do anything
Exactly.
just him. I mean, he was, like I said, he was a great wrestler. I actually have it up right now. Benoit versus Sullivan, Bash at the Beach '96.
That was
Oh yeah.
crazy.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy match. Those
but
guys legit hit each other, bro.
yeah, they were
They were
they were
going at
those
Yeah,
were
we'll talk and we'll
live
talk about that in a
rounds.
little bit. Exactly, exactly. All right. So we're on agreement. So yeah, definitely not by himself. Definitely some of his moments perhaps in a physical Hall of Fame if it existed, like Barry Bonds, but definitely not by himself. I agree. All right. So his career started in Stampede Wrestling. Rafi, correct right memory. Stampede was owned by Stu. Is that correct at the time?
Yes,
It
Stu
was, right?
Hart was the owner founder of Stampede Wrestling, and Benoit got his start there.
85 to 89. I'm looking at it
Yeah,
here.
and he it was in like kind of crazy that he grew up idolizing the Dynamite Kid, and he looked exactly like him.
I
yeah.
Like
know.
that, he was like weird.
I know. I know.
Same body, same hair, same. It's like it was his like Dynamite Kid was his father, yo, and we don't even
Yeah,
know
it
it.
was like they were related.
Exactly. All right. So thanks to Bad News Allen, I guess Bad News Brown, I'm assuming. That's his right. That's his name.
Yeah.
Bad News Allen. Bad News Brown. He got tipped to kind of depart for New Japan. Stampede, I guess, closed eventually in '89, and eventually he was going back and forth, and eventually went full time once it closed. Right. So he was a Pegasus Kid in New Japan and had amazing matches. Of course, he was a junior heavyweight because of his size, and had amazing matches with Eddie Guerrero, as we saw in the Vice documentary. Great Sasuke, as we saw before. Ghetto. What are your thoughts during this era when he was in New Japan? This is like
So
before Kenny Omega, before all that stuff, right?
so I watched a lot of this stuff, obviously after the fact, because back then it was the tape trading days for all you
Yep.
youngins. We used to get
Yes.
VHSs and
Yep.
trade them back and forth, or you would get them from RF Video. Shout out RF Video one more time. Um, so there really wasn't any internet back then, so it was more like word of mouth, and it was just like, yo, you got to check this out, watch this match, and we would get together and just start watching VHS tapes of. Then there was like a best of matches from Japan, and we would come across this guy, super freaking intense. Everything looked like he was out to kill you, from chops to clotheslines to uh, body slams, suplexes. Like this guy, he just had it all. He was very intense in the ring, and it was just like, all right, how much more material can we get? Let's see more matches. Because, you would get like one of his matches and like a compilation of a bunch of other people. It was like, we need more. Send us more stuff. Our video, put this out.
Right.
And, the matches with Liger and the matches with Eddie Guerrero, and it was like crazy seeing Eddie Guerrero under a mask, but their chemistry and the intensity in those matches was like, yo, this is good stuff. Like, when the hell are they gonna make their way over here? Yeah, man. Like he was a talented dude, man. Very, very talented dude.
And what are your thoughts during this time when he was in New Japan, 86 to 94? What are your thoughts? And you saw some of the document, or you saw the documentary with me as well. His classics against Eddie, how they were bitter rivals, and you saw Vicky was very documented how at the beginning Eddie hated working with Benoit and eventually became the best of friends. What are your thoughts on that during that time?
Yeah, well, I mean, they had great chemistry. It's just unbelievable how someone from Canada and then someone from Mexico just hit it off right from the jump, and just ended up putting on just classic after classic after classic. And it all started at New Japan, you know. I mean, and then fast forward, 15 years later, they're still putting on amazing matches, and this is in one of the in the major promotion in the world, WWE. But yeah, man, he was hard hitting. He was, like Ralphie Vibes mentioned, he was very intense. Every move mattered. Every move that he did mattered, and he made it look real. You never saw him botch a move. You never saw him. I mean, I have seen him injure someone. Didn't see him injure somebody.
That's how he got his nickname.
Huh?
Yeah.
That's how he got his nickname.
Who? Oh, yeah. In ECW, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. But yeah, he was a small guy. I think he's only 5'9", 5'10", 220. But he was just, his physique, man, just pure muscle, and the, like you mentioned before, he looks just like the Dynamite Kid. His arms are just so strong but small, so like all his punches, like everything was just high impact. He was just a great worker. He was just a great worker.
The facial expressions is what made everything matter.
Yeah.
So, he could hit you with a chop, but the look on his face looked like he was trying to put his hand through your chest.
Yeah. And one thing that I loved that he used to do, and everyone chops. Everyone does the chop. And we know that. Though, I mean, Ric Flair is the one that made it famous, but everyone chopped. But when he chopped you, my gosh, you heard it echo through the arena. And what I liked that he did was he would shake his hand after, because he made it seem like it hurt his hand from how hard he chopped you, which was great. But yeah, he was good at what he did, man.
Yeah, man. One thing that the Vice documentary noted was Jericho had a match with him in Japan, and he botched a move. We were talking about how he barely botches anything. Every move mattered. And afterwards, he did like 500 Indian squats, and he kind of punished himself for botching that move during that match. Like, that's how intense he was. What are your thoughts on that, on him kind of punishing himself for that?
So a book came out, I want to say 6 months to a year after he passed, and I bought it. And he did that all the time.
Right.
It said in the book, because they interviewed his family and friends and everything, and I think it was Chavo in the book that said if he had a match and he felt like the match wasn't good, then he would go in the back and do the Hindu squats, or he would run up and down the stairs like 100 times, or he would just he would just punish himself. And I don't know if it was like a mental thing or it was just like just to make himself stronger, but it to me like that was very odd behavior for someone, because us as fans, we don't know if it was a botch. Like I know there's people that would plan out their matches, like Macho Man, his brother, even he still has like the legal pads where he would plan every single move in every sequence in the match and memorize it, and then want to review it. And he was the same way. If he missed one of those steps in the legal pad, he would be upset at himself. So I think Benoit was probably the same. And but us as fans, we don't know that. We didn't know there was like a set of moves that they had to do, and if you missed one, how the hell will we know? We're just trying to be entertained. But to him, he would go in the back and punish himself, which I thought was very odd behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think it's odd behavior. I think it's just a way to discipline yourself. Like everyone has their own method of kicking yourself in the ass over something you regret or something that you did that you didn't like. And I think that was just his way of just disciplining himself. And I mean, it works out in sports. You see the coaches disciplining the athletes if they don't perform well, making them run laps or practicing and extended practices. And, you see it in football a lot. But Benoit just did that to, I guess, just put him back into the right frame of mind, I guess, or just, I mean, I don't know, but he did what he had to do. I haven't read that book. I'm tempted to now, but yeah,
I'll lend it to
Benoit.
you. I'll get it. I'll lend it to you. It's a really, really good read. I forget who wrote it, but it's a really, really interesting. It gives you a lot of background and then leading up to what happened, and then they even have like the actual text messages that he sent to Chavo. It's a really, really good read. I'll get it. I'll give it to you to check it out.
Right.
Cool, man. Yeah, man, very intense stuff. So believe it or not, he was in WCW for a year, 92 to 93. He teamed up with Biff Wellington. I don't know. I thought it said beef after this meal. Beef Wellington. They were defeated by Pillman and Liger in the first round at the Clash of the Champions 19. Right? And then he did not return till 93, where he defeated Brad Armstrong. A month later at Super Bowl III, he lost to Tuco Scorpio, getting pinned only 3 seconds left in the 20-minute time limit. Then he teamed with Eaton, and after that, he lost to Scorpio and Bagwell at Slamboree. After that, he headed back to Japan. So it was a very short-lived run in WCW. What are your thoughts at this time? I didn't know too much of him at this time, but what are your thoughts, Rafi, of the first run in WCW before his main run?
Forgettable. I had no idea that honestly that he was even there. I thought that he went straight from Japan to ECW, because they don't really talk about that 1 year that he was there. Now I'm tempted to go back and watch this.
Check it out.
Which I'm probably gonna do after we're done recording this. I'm
definitely gonna watch Chamber 02, believe it or not, once we're all done recording. So. Without fast forward. Henry, what are your thoughts? I mean, not much to talk about, but just interesting how he had a short stint and then eventually, had his long stint in 95.
Yeah, I wasn't really into WCW during that time. I think around that time I was just starting to get into ECW. But yeah, I didn't know much. He wasn't really showcased like that in WCW. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine. Who did he even feud with? He was in a tag team. You said?
Yeah, he was in a tag team. He was part of this tournament, and he eventually lost to Pillman and Liger in the first round, and then he came back a couple of months later and he beat Brad Armstrong. After that, he fought Tuco Scorpio once, and then he was on a team one time with Bobby Eaton. So not much. Very, very unforgettable.
Yeah, very unforgettable run there.
Yeah, exactly. very or forgettable for that matter.
Forgettable.
Yes, you know what I mean. All right, so ECW. This is where I was exposed to him, right? So '94, he began working in Japan, and in between, obviously, was in ECW as well. He gained the nickname Crippler. He put Rock out. He also lost to Tuco Scorpio in one night only elimination tournament for the vacant World Heavyweight Championship. He lost to him in the quarterfinals. He broke Sabu's neck. I guess you guys can highlight that. I guess he tried to pancake, but for whatever reason, Sabu tried to flip, and he never flipped. What are your thoughts on that? I guess Henry. Sosa, talk about that, because you were Sabu for such a long time.
It's all right. Yeah, that was great, because at this time, Heyman started signing a lot of new talent. He started signing guys from New Japan, and Mexico too. He brought over Eddie Guerrero. He brought over Dean Malenko. He brought over Benoit. Tuco Scorpio was there at that time. Then he got those guys from Mexico, Rey Mysterio, Psychosis.
Juventud Guerrero as well.
I believe so. And he just signed like an influx of talent, just amazing talent, And the cool thing was that ECW was known for its hardcore wrestling, but these guys went out there and put on an amazing match and stole the show. Yeah. So you would have Benoit versus Malenko, or Guerrero versus Malenko, or Benoit versus Guerrero, and just time after time, it was just great wrestling that went on, and the fans ate it up. The fans loved it. So yeah, that was a cool time period. Benoit really stood out too. He was put in matches with I think he tagged with Taz, I believe.
He tagged with Malenko.
Malenko, was it?
Yeah, Malenko.
Yeah.
They won the belts.
Yeah, it was great work. Benoit was never the type to wasn't like the greatest talker. But just his promos, you would see the intensity in his eyes, and it was just great stuff, man.
Vibes, what are your thoughts?
His time in ECW, man, that was a tape trader's dream, bro. Because a lot of people didn't get this stuff, man. We didn't start getting ECW until I want to say '96 on the MSG channel.
Yeah,
I think it was like 95.
Late '95, right?
At 2 in the morning on a Saturday night.
But this, I remember first seeing Benoit in ECW when they kept playing over and over that he broke Sabu's neck.
Right.
Because remember they used to do the commercials and everything, and then our video tape trading, get this stuff, watch it, and it was just like, Jesus Christ, man, like this guy is freaking intense, yo. And then in ECW, a lot of us thought like it was real, and they were out to kill each other. So him wrestling the way that he was, and breaking Sabu's neck and riding that wave with the crippler, it just made you like this guy even more, and fear him too. Like you see him and you're like, yo, who's he gonna injure now? Is he gonna break somebody else's neck? So Heyman was good at that. Heyman was good at taking guys and making them stars.
Right.
Just building off little things and making them stars.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, man. So then Benoit and Malenko, they won the tag team championships from Sabu and Tasmaniac in February '95. This was Benoit's first championship, American championship. And according to Wikipedia, I don't know how true this is, that he was part of the original Triple Threat stable with Shane Douglas and Malenko. Was that true, Ralph?
They were trying something with it, and I don't think it worked. It didn't work out.
Yeah, they won the Blues and the belts right away, the tag team championships to Public Enemy, and and then he spent some time feuding with the Steiner brothers. I forgot the Steiner brothers were in ECW.
So a lot of the stuff like didn't really make it to TV.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to be there to see it.
Right. And he rekindled his feud with Tuco Scorpio and eventually left to WCW after that. What are your thoughts, man, on just wrapping up with his ECW time, guys, on Chris Benoit?
ECW, I think, played a huge role in introducing so many wrestlers, so much amazing talent to the U.S. And it was a good step. It was a good place to go to showcase your talent, and for the major promotions to actually see what you do and then eventually sign you. It was like a stepping stone, you know.
Right.
So it was great, but it's like what NXT is now, you know. Like they would first go there, show off their talent to the crowd, and then once you get signed, everyone recognizes you. Everyone knows who you are because they saw your work from this other company. But like you mentioned before, those pretty much I think 95.
95, yeah.
Was it 95 that WCW started signing all these guys from ECW? They signed Guerrero, Rey Mysterio. They signed Psychosis. They signed Dean Malenko. They signed all those guys that I mentioned that were signed from other countries and other promotions. WCW just scooped them all up. ECW. So yeah, it goes to show you, man. Those guys, they're the best at what they do.
Yep. So he eventually signed with WCW in '95. Eventually, it was still part of this. You know, WCW and New Japan had this working relationship where he's. I think he went back one time, as part of the Super J Cup. I think he even beat Jericho in the quarterfinals over there. But eventually came in the fall of '95. I guess his first feud was, or he was originally part of the New Horsemen back in '95. What are your thoughts on? So we start with you, Vibes, in regards to his time back in WCW now for 6 years, 6 or 7 years. What are your thoughts? When he first debuted,
I don't think he fit in the Four Horsemen.
Right.
It wasn't really his thing.
Right.
Because he's not the type of guy to be like. There's certain people that are made for factions, and there's certain people that are not. And to me, him and Malenko didn't fit in the Horsemen. I know what they were trying to do with it, but he didn't fit the mold. But at the same time, he had some very memorable matches and feuds during that stretch. When he finally broke off on his own, that's when he really started to shine.
Right.
I mean, those guys were very limited in the things that they were able to do with WCW because, if you weren't a monster or a big name, they didn't really care. So they pretty much had the freedom to go out there and do whatever the hell they wanted with the limited amount of time that they were given. And he went out there and he, they stole the show. His feud with Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah. What you talking about now?
Which was probably one of his best feuds there. And it's funny because they even mentioned in the Vice documentary, Sullivan booked his own divorce.
It's true.
And, back then kayfabe was alive, so it was him and woman were being seen everywhere together because they had to keep kayfabe alive, brother.
Exactly.
But that led to one of the craziest matches at a pay-per-view. They fought everywhere, in the bathroom, in the freaking stairs, in the arena, in the lobby, everywhere. They were going in. I just slamming the stall door in the head. He was legit doing that. It weren't fake hits. He was freaking. They were punching each other in the face. They were going crazy. that really showed like the American audience, like the intensity of this guy.
Yeah.
And I think after that match is when people actually started to care about these smaller guys.
Yeah. I agree. So originally, Kevin Sullivan was feuding with Brian Pillman. And Brian Pillman signed with WWF, eventually left, and then they inserted Benoit into the storyline, as you mentioned. And of course, Woman was the valet for Sullivan. And eventually, they had this on-screen relationship, which eventually turned off-screen, which they formed real chemistry, right? And yeah, I believe that was a match that you're talking about, Rafi, right? At Bash at the Beach, where it culminated in a retirement match because Sullivan was going to go behind the scenes, and that's where they fought everywhere. And I believe it's highlighted in the Vice Vice documentary, where even once it was over, they were still fighting, I guess, because
and
they spilled into real life. What are your thoughts on that, Rive, and then Henry after that?
They did continue to fight backstage, and it was funny, like nobody was breaking them up because like I guess people wanted this to happen.
Right.
But I mean, they kind of for some odd reason, like Sullivan did it to himself.
Right.
You set this up in a certain way, and then leading up to it, like you draw the lines between reality and story, and they just, one thing led to another, and they started going at it, and it just, even up to Benoit's death, like people were saying that Sullivan had something to do with it. You know, even though in reality, behind the scenes, like Sullivan was, even though they hated each other, he was looking at the bigger picture and seeing how much of a good, like a star he was. Like he was even advocating for him to win titles, because he had like the storyline, and he was like the booker, and but maybe it was a one-sided, maybe it was Benoit that had the anger, but like I don't know, it's just very odd times back then, man.
I mean,
I wish it could have been behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, and I also think that, I mean, I don't want to fully say that he booked his own divorce, but I mean, according to what they were saying, he was abusive towards women.
True. Yeah.
Which I mean, I didn't even know about that, but if that was the case, then I can see why she left him,
Right.
But think about all the times that we see in wrestling where the I mean, it went on just recently with Lana and Rusev and the whole Bobby Lashley thing. If it's handled correctly, then everyone is just gonna play their part. Their personal life is not gonna, it's not gonna affect their
impact.
Personal life. It's not, it's gonna have an impact. But in that case between Woman, Benoit, and Sullivan, if he was abusive towards her, and she's on the road with Benoit most of the time, then she's obviously gonna vent to him. She's obviously gonna need a shoulder to cry on. And Benoit was there for her, and they said in the documentary that he was like trying to help her out and for advice, and he was trying to console her. And even a woman's sister was saying that he was a great man, and he really became like just a good person to be around for women during that time period. And then eventually they ended up becoming together. They got together and got married.
Yeah.
And, but if it was because Sullivan, let's say Sullivan was a great guy and he truly loved each other, and then in comes Benoit and he just steals her away from him, then it would be like, damn, this guy's an asshole. But that wasn't the case, it wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was sort of like what Edge didn't Edge do that to Hardy?
Yeah, exactly.
Hardy.
Yeah. History repeats itself over and over again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So all right, so they get together, all right, and we'll talk about that later on. They get together in real life, and she's real supportive of him. And in '98, Benoit has one of the best of 7 feuds ever with Booker T over the TV Championship, right? A best of 7 series, right? So what are your thoughts on the best of 7 series? It was eventually won by Booker T, I believe. But what are your thoughts on the best of 7 series, Rafi? Vibes, we'll start with you first.
Oh my God, dude, this was like the greatest series of matches ever. This put them on the map. This actually elevated Booker T to become a world champion.
Yeah.
When it was Benoit was up 3-1,
Yeah.
and you were like, whatever. But once Booker T was climbing back up, and then it was tied, dude. The crowd, everybody was into this. I remember talking about this at school, like, yo, you have to watch these matches. They meshed really well together, and they were 2 different styles, but that just goes to show like the talent that they were. I love these series of matches. I actually went back and watched like a few months ago. I was home and I was like bored, and I just came across it. I think somebody had posted it on Facebook in one of the groups, and I went back to rewatch like a few of the matches, and not every match was different. The psychology in each match was different. It wasn't like the same, like when they try to do it with Sheamus and Cesaro. It wasn't like that.
Right.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
Every single match was different, and the intensity, and whoever booked this deserves to be like praised, because these guys went out there and beat the hell out of each other, but it made sense, and it was like a distraction from the other storylines that were going on. And most of the time, like the undercard didn't have storyline.
No, it was just matches. That's it.
Yeah. So this was something to look forward to. I liked it. I thought it was great.
It was so dumb. They didn't because during the final match was on Nitro, and I remember this. Bret Hart injected himself, and he interfered because I think he wanted him part of the NWO. He refused. So the match, I don't know, I guess wound up being a no contest, or whatever, and then Booker T finally won the 8th match. Do you remember that, Rafi?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah? That was just WCW. WCW.
WCW. Nah, it was, and it didn't need that, because like Vibes mentioned, this was one of the highlights of the mid card, the undercard, because and the NWO wasn't involved, and the NWO was involved in every single match for WCW during that time, and that was that one feud that they didn't need NWO to be involved. And then if that was the case during the last match, then that's bullshit. Like, why would they interject Bret Hart? I guess because he wanted the U.S. Championship, or he wanted these guys to join. Yeah, come on, it didn't need that, But yeah, that was a great feud. It showed you that Booker T is a star. It showed you that he's a single star, and he's ready for the next move. He's ready to become one of the top guys in the business, and it was absolutely amazing. And it showed you that Booker T can go. Yeah. Booker T can, man, with the best of them, and that put him on the map, man. That put him on the map. I think after that, wasn't he? He wasn't GI Bro during this time.
That's later on.
This was later on, right?
Yep.
All right, good.
That's when Russo came on board later on.
We'll talk about that another time, man.
Exactly. So very interesting time, right? So after falling out with Anderson and I guess Arn Anderson and Michael, I guess he was still part of Horsemen here and there. Benoit Malenko left the Horsemen after he won the U.S. Championship, and they started their own faction called the Revolution, bringing together Malenko, Saturn, Shane Douglas. I don't know why he was part of the Revolution. It was half kayfabe, half real. How they, management was against them and pushing them, and giving them time. Right? What are your thoughts on? I forgot about this faction. Right, Vibes. What are your thoughts on this?
this was again, they didn't really care what the undercard did, so they just basically went out and did whatever they wanted. Remember Jericho? He brought out Ralphus. The office didn't even care. Ralphus used to drive the truck from city to city. That's so they had the freedom to do whatever the hell they wanted because nobody cared. Nobody paid attention to them.
It's true. Ralphus.
Nobody paid attention to anything that they were doing. So, them creating their own stable, like management didn't give a crap.
Yeah.
They were just like, yo, you got 6 minutes, go out. Who cares? Like they didn't pay attention to them. And Bischoff even admitted himself, like they never watched anything that these guys did, which is why nothing made sense. They, the stable, it gave them a chance to I guess shine, but then they didn't really know what they had until it was too late. I think it was during this time that Benoit, he won the title. He threw it in the trash because he didn't even care.
He won the world title.
Yeah,
right?
he beat Sid. Yeah, here's the story behind that. We're actually getting a little ahead of ourselves, but he was unhappy working for them, so they try to make him happy by winning the vacant championship by beating Sid, and the next day, he threw it in the trash. And actually, WCW didn't want to recognize the reign, and then eventually, when he came to WWE, they recognized it. So that's crazy, right?
Here's the crazy thing: like Sullivan was the booker.
Yeah, exactly.
And he booked him to win the title, and he quit. He threw the title in the trash and he quit. It was a good match, him against Sid. But they were just fed up. I don't blame them. They were the guys that everyone tuned in for. If you go back and look at the ratings during those matches were some of the best that they had. It would go up when they came out, and the other stuff happened, and it would go down, and it would go back up. In the heyday of the NWO, towards the 99, 2000, the NWO stuff got boring. But they were the guys you tuned in for.
Right.
Benoit's, the Jerichos, the Guerreros, the Hoovies, and instead of capitalizing on this stuff, they tried to cut them off at the knees. They took Hoovie's mask and they made him into like a Mexican version of The Rock.
Right.
No sense. They took
Mysterio's mask.
They took Mysterio's mask. They try to ruin these guys. But thankfully, because they had freedom, they were doing their own thing and people actually liked it. Right. So I didn't blame them all for leaving. They did the right thing.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to highlight was out of Eddie, one of the only positives, right? He fought Bret Hart in a tribute match to Owen Hart at Kansas City. I think it was the same arena that Owen died, actually. Yeah, that was a great match. Yeah. What are your thoughts? I'm gonna call you Sabu. What are your thoughts, Sabu?
Yeah, they don't know about our CGW days.
No.
They don't know. They don't know. Dude, it was. I think that was the best match Bret Hart had in WCW. Him and Benoit. That was in '99, I believe.
Yep.
Was it
October '99? Yeah. October '99. Yep.
Yeah. So that was the night after he passed.
No, that was a couple of months because he died May of '99 at Over the Edge. Yeah.
I'm about to say, but yeah, that was great, and it was a great tribute to Owen. But Benoit, man, let me tell you something. Benoit, Jericho, Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, these guys, it didn't matter what promotion they were in, they were the workhorses of that company. They would go out there and just put on a 5-star match, and then just call it a night. Pack their bags, go to the next town. Meanwhile, they're not getting paid, the same money as Hogan and Flair and Nash and Hall. But they would go out there and just do their thing. And obviously, in WCW because they gave these older guys, these main event wrestlers, more money and more attention. Eventually, they moved over to WWE, which helped out their career in a big way.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to Guerrero, Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah.
They all became stars except for Perry Saturn.
Saturn, man. He had a mop. What happened?
Yeah, that was his main thing, Moppy.
Wow.
So the thing with WCW is they didn't respect these guys.
Right.
They didn't care. Guerrero got coffee thrown in his face because he wanted more airtime. Benoit had his issues backstage, and they didn't really see any upside to these guys, so they weren't getting the money they deserved. But then you had people like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash that had it in their contract that if they're making a certain amount and then someone else gets hired and makes a little bit more than them, then they automatically get a raise to whatever they were making. So, it was just it was a lot of BS, and they lost a lot of great talent. Guys that knew their worth and were like, yo, F it, I'm out. I'm going to take a chance on myself. There was guys that were just stuck, and they didn't want to take that chance. Right. And they stayed until the very end.
Right. And you know what's funny? Sorry to cut you off. That I feel like in a lot of our episodes, we mention how we always bring up a different point on how WCW screwed up.
It's true.
And it led to their demise.
Yeah.
This is another point.
Yeah.
The same thing that Rafi was saying, that you have these younger, these smaller guys that can work their asses off, but you don't see them as main eventers for whatever reason, because you're paying these part-timers or these older guys millions of dollars to put them on TV, and I mean, some of these main event feuds it was absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
It was trash, and you have these guys going out there working their ass off for your company and putting on great matches, but you're not really glorifying them. And it was BS. It was absolute BS, man.
Yeah.
But
so they all leave.
Yeah.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead, bro.
No, well, what I was gonna mention is that in a way, and I don't, I'm jumping the gun here. Maybe I'm assuming stuff. Look at WWE right now. Right. You have these part-timers, let's say, main eventing your biggest show.
Right.
And we've already seen other talent in the company just leave because they're not happy there. And now they have other options of where to go.
Right.
And I can see this happening in the next year or so with WWE, where they're not losing money as the same way WCW did, but you have these guys like Goldberg, Brock Lesnar, they're getting paid top dollar, Undertaker, these guys who aren't working 350 days a year, and they're not putting on 5-star matches time and time again for the crowd. And they're not putting their bodies on the line the same way other talent is doing. And I can see these guys. I mean, we've already seen it happen. Yeah. People are asking for their release because they're not happy in WWE. I mean, I don't think WWE is going to shut down the way WCW did, but I mean,
but they're making the same mistakes that WCW.
Same mistakes.
Exactly.
Yeah. History's repeating itself again, literally right now in 2020. There's options now. They have AEW, New Japan, MLW, right? ROH, believe it or not. Yeah. Impact, right? You have all these places, right?
They're making the same mistakes, the same dumb. Like I get it. Like they have to appeal to their investors.
Exactly.
But at the same time, without people in the stands paying for merchandise, buying tickets, if you don't build stars now for the future, there's not going to be any legends later on.
Right.
And they have, dude, the roster they have, they should be popping a rating every single week. Just give the people what they want.
Right.
And they're not. And they're not. They're giving us the same stale bullshit every single week. And it's like, how many times can you watch, the same Baron Corbin versus Roman Reigns match? How many times can you watch
Andrade versus Carrillo again?
Yeah, it's like, come on, man.
Right. I know.
You have all this talent, all these guys in the back that are going from town to town, and they're not even on TV. They're not even on TV. And then when you finally do see them, it's just like they just job out to whoever it is they're going up against, and it's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. Like, at least, yeah, like, what happened to Kurt Hawkins and then Zack Ryder? What happened to guys? What happened to freaking Bo Dallas? Like, I don't get it. Like, I mean, if you want to convert them into enhancement talent, like you want to have them put over other guys, that's fine. That's great. But you're having these freaking rematches time and time again. I'm sick and tired of it. You have so much talent, man. Just put other guys to work and make it. I mean, don't get me wrong. This whole Andrade, Carrillo, Mysterio, and Garza. Feud it's great. It's great TV. They put on great matches, but the fans are getting kind of tired of the same thing over and over again. And they get away with it because it's WWE.
Right. Exactly. No, I agree with you, man. I know you had a vent. It seems like you had that in you for months.
I had it in me. All right, sorry. Let's get back to topic.
So the Radicals. Yeah, speaking of unused talent or unappreciated talent. So the four of them, right? Guerrero, Saturn, Malenko, Benoit, all debuted as the Radicals in January 2000. And eventually Benoit won his first championship. He won the IC belt at WrestleMania 2000. Kurt Angle's 2 out of 3 falls, whatever, triple threat match, right? So what are your thoughts on the Radicals debuting in WWF finally in the big time? What are your thoughts initially when you saw
Game changer.
Yeah.
This was shifted the tide in the war, because it was the opposite now. Guys jumping from there to come over here. Jericho was one of the first, and then you had these guys, and this is what I mean by they didn't know what they had until it was gone. Look at the way instantly these guys all became stars.
Yeah.
2 out of the 4 world champions.
Right.
One of them Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they knew what they had, and they knew what to do with them, and as much shit that Triple H gets, he was one of the first ones to put them over.
Right.
And he saw and he knew what was needed to be done. They came in and they just rode that wave.
Yeah.
They rode that wave until WCW was gone. And even after that, they were part of the SmackDown 6. And there was you had to tune in every week to see these guys because you never knew what was going to happen.
Right. Yep. Right. Yeah, man. So he came in, he won the IC belt. He had an amazing match with The Rock at Fully Loaded. I remember that. That was like the first time that they highlighted, right? Triple main event, right?
Yeah.
You had him and I think it was Triple H, Jericho. Am I right, Ralphie? I was for sure it was The Rock and Benoit. It was right. I don't remember.
I think it was Fully Loaded 2000 was Chris Jericho and The Rock.
No. I have it here. It's Benoit, The Rock. And what were the other 2 main events? Let's see. Really? Let's Google it.
Google it.
Fully Loaded.
Fully Loaded.
That was a great pay-per-view.
Was awesome. All of 2002. That was a great year, man. That was a great
2000
year.
Or 2000.
Oh yeah, 2000. Sorry.
Here it is.
I don't know what day it is. I'm like this damn quarantine, man.
I know. Oh yeah, it was triple main event. Undertaker Angle. That was a great match. Triple H, Jericho. Yep. And that was The Rock, Benoit. Triple main event. That's how they promoted it. The triple main. So that was the first time, as you guys mentioned.
Yeah. They didn't mention in the they don't mention his name in the in the description.
Oh, that's why. So yeah, man, it's very interesting. It was the first time, as you guys mentioning, right, how they finally got their time to shine, Jericho. And if you remember, I think it was like Jericho won the belt like Dusty Rhodes ending, like he pinned them and then reversed the decision, and this led to a feud between Triple H and Jericho.
That was a great match.
Yeah, that was good on Raw. I remember that. So that title reign was never recognized in the books. So The Rock defeated Benoit but basically what I'm trying to say is Benoit, used his full, capabilities. You know what I mean? All right. So he's in 2001 he feuds with Kurt Angle, and I was there to witness his greatest match at one of his greatest matches at WrestleMania 17. Like, what are your thoughts on this feud with Angle in 2001?
I loved it. They had such good chemistry.
Yeah.
Like they beat the shit out of each other.
and what are your thoughts?
It was a perfect matchup. Perfect matchup. Two guys that are intense, two guys that were amazing workers, two guys that had great offense. They can just go in the ring. Yeah. And it was dope. It was dope, man. Damn. Both of them were part of the SmackDown 6, right? You mentioned that, Ralphie. Who was it? It was Angle, Benoit, Guerrero,
Mysterio, Edge,
and Chavo.
And Chavo.
Yeah.
Wow.
Think about that.
And then don't forget, like, you also had Haas and Benjamin that were
part of Team Angle.
Team Angle. They put on great matches as well. Yeah. But yeah, man, Angle and Benoit. It was a great feud. Great feud, man.
But they even feuded the year prior in the WrestleMania prior. WrestleMania
that's true.
It was the triple threat match for the IC and the European.
Yeah.
I think Angle was both champions and he
lost both.
Yeah.
Yeah. With Jericho and Benoit,
yeah.
They didn't have Benoit and Angle never had a singles match at WrestleMania, did they?
Yeah, WrestleMania 17.
WrestleMania 17.
All right. Damn, that's dope, man.
I know. And then the blow-off match was Judgment Day, where Angle won a 2 out of 3 falls match with the help of Edge and Christian. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then later on, if you remember, in 01, he fought a triple threat match with Jericho and Austin, where actually he was injured prior to that, but he wound up after that. He was on the shelf for a while. What are your thoughts on that, man? Like, do you remember that, Ralphie?
When he broke his neck, right?
He broke his neck. Yeah, he broke his neck. It was a weird triple threat match. I was there. I don't remember like him being injured, but he continued to wrestle until the King of the Ring.
Well, I know that he had the injury for a while, but he wasn't saying anything because he had that old school mentality of, you're hurt, you don't say anything, you just come in until you can't anymore, because then you lose your spot.
Yeah.
Which,
it's a little bit.
That mentality. That mentality back then shortened a lot of careers, man.
Yeah.
And had he taken the proper time to take off and heal his injuries, maybe he still would be here right now. Who knows?
Right.
But yeah, I remember him, and then that's when his DVD came out. They did a lot of other things with him.
Yeah.
During that time.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So that's okay. You got distracted. That's all right. So he got injured and he got put on the shelf for a little bit. And then during the draft in 2002, he was drafted to be part of the SmackDown roster. But when he came back, he wound up being on the Raw roster. And during I didn't know this, open contract season, wound up going back to SmackDown. What are your thoughts on that?
He was like lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, he was, right?
This was way after he had already won the title, right?
No, we're talking before WrestleMania 20.
Before.
We're talking 02, 03. We're talking like basically 02, 03.
Yeah,
in the beginning of the draft.
I think they were confused with the whole draft and they didn't know what to do and who to put where, and Raw was like lacking some star power, but then they wanted all the stars on Raw. It was a weird time. I remember being very confused
They
during
didn't know what
this
to
time.
do.
They felt it was too unbalanced, and that's why there were open contracts. That they try to reshuffle the stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So man. So all right. So eventually, as you know, he's part of the SmackDown 6, and okay. So all right. So basically, he wound up fighting Big Show Armageddon 03. What is it? At Armageddon, he faced him again for the championship at Royal Rumble 03. Match was highly praised, although he lost the match and received a standing ovation. I remember that, and returned to the tag team ranks following teaming with Rhino. And eventually at WrestleMania 19, Team Angle put their title on the line against Benoit and his partner Rhino and Los Guerreros in the triple threat match. Team Angle retained when Benjamin pinned Ciampa. What are your thoughts on Benoit this time? I felt he was kind of like lost in the shuffle post injury. And he did a great job at Rumble 03. But what are your thoughts on him again, Ralphie, at this time?
I felt the same way. I felt like he was lost in the shuffle. The injury really put a damper on what they had planned.
Yeah.
And I guess they had to scrap all that, and it was just like, I guess they knew where they were going, but on the way there, they didn't know how to get there. Right. He was just like, involved in a lot of odd feuds that didn't make any sense.
Right. What are your thoughts, Sosa, on Benoit at this time? 03, even post WrestleMania, I felt he was like lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, he was absolutely lost in the shuffle. But he was still, he was still relevant. He was still relevant during that time. I mean, I think they won the titles. I'm not too sure. The tag titles, Rhino and Benoit. I'm not sure. But he was still relevant. I just feel like they kind of Raw is Vince's baby.
Right.
Vince really wants Raw to be successful. And I think because of SmackDown defeating Raw in the ratings for all those weeks, I think he wanted to take some of those guys, like Benoit and Guerrero, and move them over to Raw. And once that happened, it kind of messed everything up, because now they're still putting on great matches, but it wasn't in the same caliber as it was in SmackDown, because Raw was more storyline based.
Right.
So yeah, he got lost in the shuffle, bro. I don't know.
All right, so a very interesting point. This is the rise of Benoit in 03, leading up into him winning the Royal Rumble in 04. So he was part of Team Angle against Team Lesnar. I guess he was part of Team Angle, where he made Lesnar tap by submission. And later on the December 4th edition of SmackDown, he lost after passing out to Lesnar's debuting Brock Lock. I don't remember. What the hell is a Brock Lock? And eventually Heyman had a vendetta against him, and that's when that started, the whole storyline of him drawing number 1 in the Rumble in 04. Vibes, what do you remember about the Brock Lock?
I think it was like a bear hug, I think, if I remember correctly. I don't remember the Brock Lock.
Brock Lock.
Brock Lock. Now I'm curious. What is a Brock Lock?
Let's go look it up. Let's see.
Google it.
Brock Lock.
I don't remember a Brock Lock. Do you remember what a Brock Lock is?
Hold on.
Let me know what you come up with as far as what is a Brock Lock.
I'm pulling it up right now. I don't remember what the hell it was.
Oh, it was a freaking it was like a knee submission.
Oh, I remember. On his leg, with the leg over his head or his neck, and he would. Yes, I remember that.
That's actually dope. I thought it was like a master lock or something.
Me too, but I didn't know he called it a Brock Lock.
I'm pulling it up right now.
Oh, so you made him pass out to that? That's very interesting. There it is. Let me see shit. Who's that? That's Benoit? It's December 4th. Oh, yeah, there it is. Yep. The Brock Lock.
There it is, the Brock Lock.
Man, that's awesome.
Damn, he should do that again.
That's awesome because if you think about it, he's big enough to like carry anybody over his head like that.
Imagine him
Just
doing that.
freaking break their knee. That's great.
So what are your thoughts on I guess they finally realize, I guess that's Heyman's doing, right? Heyman knows how to push the right people. What are your thoughts on him finally, like, redemption storyline and leading up into him winning the Rumble?
I think that helped get him back on track to the title picture. Benoit's an intense dude, man, and I think he can match up well with anyone. So putting him in there with Brock is like this is like Brock Lesnar's prime when he was like this young, fresh off the like what was that OVW boat.
Right, exactly.
I think they meshed well together, and this kind of helped him. I think shortly after this, they stole him. He won the Royal Rumble, and then he went to Raw.
Yep.
But I think had he chose to stay on SmackDown and won the title there, I think his title reign would have been longer. But again, they got him on track. He went back. He won the championship. All thanks to Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman knows stars, man. Paul Heyman knows how to see things in people and build them up to get them to where they need to be. I mean, he's doing it now on Raw with some guys, but then it's just convincing Vince of letting it happen.
Right. So he wins the championship, like as Sosa's mentioned, one of the greatest moments, right? No matter what, right? Ever. At the end, you have Eddie, as you know, went through all that stuff. He was fired from the WWE, had all his issues. We all know that was very well documented, and had a main event match at WrestleMania 20. And Benoit, we all know what he went through in real life, and for them to finish the show as the respective champions, that was pretty cool to see them hug it out. And I actually I shed a tear, I'm not gonna lie, when it happened live at Madison Square Garden. What are your thoughts on that? We'll start with you, Vibes. Or Henry. Or
yeah. I mean, just the fact that both of these men have contributed so much of their, they just put on just great work for about 10, 15 years. And they finally had their moment on the grandest stage of them all in New York City. And the fact that they had so much history together and they both ended the night as world champions. And it was just beautiful. It was beautiful. It was beautiful because it was like you finally have Benoit finally had his moment. He finally had his moment. And it was just so well played. Like what I love about this whole, like, when you watch it on TV, Benoit goes on the top rope, and then when he like goes down and turns around, you just see Eddie there. Like they didn't show Eddie like coming down the ramp or sliding in the ring or whatever. Like you just see him standing there, and both of them just had tears in their eyes and they hug it out. And like it was funny too because the crowd kind of didn't know what was happening because Eddie's in there. You didn't know if he was gonna turn on Chris Benoit or whatever, but they just started hugging it. It was like a feel good moment. I think it was improvised. I wouldn't be surprised if Eddie was backstage and told Vince like, "Hey, can I run out there and just celebrate with him?" And I don't, Vince probably was like, yeah, go ahead. This is great TV right here. And think about too, like Benoit went up against Shawn Michaels and Triple H, who have a lot of pull in that company, and they're Vince's ear all the time. And the fact that they put him over, it says a lot. It says a lot, and it shows you that because of his wrestling and all his work, you don't need to be the greatest talker in the company. You don't need to have the most lavish gimmick. The fact that you can go in the ring and put on a great match time and time again, it meant a lot. And eventually it got him the heavyweight championship.
Yeah.
It was great, man. It was great. It was a great moment in wrestling.
Yeah. Vibes, what are your thoughts, man, on that moment
Um,
with all those circumstances?
it was well deserved. It was a culmination of everything that they fought to get there, and they deserved it. The fact that Triple H tapped out um, shows that they really saw something in this dude. Um, they did their best to put him over. Two of the top guys of all time. You know, it didn't hurt them to take the L. It elevated Benoit to the level where they wanted him to go. After his title reign wasn't as memorable, but that night they made him a star.
Yeah, it wasn't memorable at all. Like he was in a feud with Edge against La Resistance, and he was feuding with Kane. He fought him at Bad Blood, and eventually lost the title to Orton at SummerSlam 04. We're gonna fast forward a little bit just to save time. What are your thoughts on his reign and his abrupt ending? What are your thoughts? We'll start with Sosa.
Yeah, it was too short. It was too short, and it was pretty much forgettable. And it was disappointing because we finally had that world champion that it was kind of like when Daniel Bryan won it, for you fans out there that don't have, they don't really have much knowledge of wrestling back in the days. But just imagine how when Daniel Bryan won in WrestleMania 30, that was the same feeling that we had in WrestleMania 20, where you had this guy who wasn't given the ball, and they finally gave him the ball. They finally said, you know what, this is your time now, and they really didn't give him much after that. You had this feel good moment, and they gave him a great push. He was number one in the Rumble and ended up winning it, and that's what led to the main event at WrestleMania. And he closed the show, and then after that, they didn't know what to do. Which I don't understand. I feel like they should have gave him a manager or mouthpiece. Maybe to like kind of help him out, but they really didn't have anything for him. I think they just wanted to give everyone that moment, and then they were looking at Orton as the next guy they wanted to like push or whatever, But yeah, it was
forgetful. But they do this all the time. They do this every single time. They'll push a guy to the moon.
Right.
He'll get the title, and then after it's just like, all right, I'm sick of seeing it. They did it to Seth.
Right.
They did it. I have a feeling that it's going to happen with McIntyre.
Even Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Bray Wyatt. They what they do is they see who the fans love. They see who the fans are cheering for and who's over. And they'll give them that moment. They know they don't want that guy to be the top guy. So like, you know what? We're going to give the fans this moment, but we're just going to take it away whenever we want to. And I think that's what they did with Benoit. They're doing it with other guys now. They're doing, like you guys mentioned, they're doing that right now at this moment. Although with McIntyre, I could see him holding that title and having a good run with it.
I mean,
they just got to give him the right opponents,
In an arena with no fans.
Yo,
that's true. I know.
I don't even know. That is heartbreaking to me. That's heartbreaking.
So he loses the championship. All right, and then he's lost in the shuffle again, and he's inserted in part of the storyline between Randy and Triple H. At the Survivor Series, he teams on Orton's side, while Edge teams on Triple H's side. He continues to feud with Edge until New Year's Revolution in 05, where the feud just stops abruptly. He's in a feud, I guess, with Edge and Michaels eventually, and somehow after that, this is when the concept of Money in the Bank was born. We could talk about the Money in the Bank in a separate episode, but what are your thoughts on the concept being brought up by Jericho? Apparently, we'll start with you, Vibes, and then we'll get into.
I thought it was a dope idea.
Right.
It was an opportunity for for guys to get elevated. Then that you didn't want to wait till the Rumble
Mm-hmm.
for them to win it, or you didn't have to start like a long-term feud with them. You could just and it was like you could cash it in whenever you wanted. So that like the element of surprise was pretty dope.
The
Edge
first few
won,
times it was cool. Yeah, Edge
yeah.
won the first time.
Now it's
Yeah.
like obvious
Yeah, exactly.
unless they do it like the last really good cash in was Seth at Mania.
Right.
Um, I don't remember any other ones after that were that good.
You have Ziggler. You guys mentioned Ziggler's cash in.
No,
Well,
but
Before
that
no,
was
that
pretty
was
good.
before. That was
Before
pretty
that,
good too.
Ziggler's cash in was dope.
Yeah.
Rollins was great. The best one was oh wait, sorry, Edge.
The first one, right? Yeah.
Edge, that was dope.
Yeah.
That propelled him to be a superstar.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
That
true.
propelled him to be a main eventer, a world champion.
It's true. It's true.
Can't forget about Damien Sandow.
Yeah.
He was
terrible.
best.
That was terrible.
Damien Sandow, Baron Corbin. Who else? Nah, man. CM Punk too, right? CM Punk.
That was a good.
That was great.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna fast forward a little bit. So he's again, they try to replicate the WCW with the best of 7, but then Booker T gets injured and Orton gets slotted into to finish the feud. What are your thoughts on that? That happened in 05, I think. What are your thoughts on that? Vibes, do you remember that?
Forgettable, man. It was like, why? What was the point?
Right.
You can't replicate something that was so dope the first time around.
Right.
It just doesn't work. And those are things that are like one time and one time only, and you can't repeat them again and expect the same result because it's not gonna happen.
Right.
That's just lazy booking.
Yeah. We talk about all the time about how people copy WWE.
Right.
WWE recycles a lot of storylines, man.
They
do take shit from other companies.
Right.
It's that people don't want to acknowledge it, but it happens.
Yeah. So they try to replicate that. Didn't work. Eventually, if you fast forward to 07, of course, he gets drafted as part of the 2007 draft to ECW, and his only match in ECW, he defeats Elijah Burke for the right to fight for the vacated championship at Vengeance, and on June 24th, which obviously never happened. So what are your thoughts leading Benoit and ECW? That was, first of all, ECW and WWE, that was kind of weird in itself, right? But what are your thoughts on Benoit and ECW in 07? We're almost done.
This is just them not knowing what to do. This is too many people on the roster and having no idea what to do with them.
Yeah.
That ECWWE was crap, and anybody that went there, if you became a star, you were lucky. Because there was really nothing.
The only person that benefited from that ECW era was CM Punk.
Right.
That's it. Nobody else. No one else.
Right.
But like Vibes mentioned, freaking they didn't know what to do. I think they were trying to add some relevancy to that company, to that promotion or that brand by moving Benoit over there.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter where you put him, he's gonna put on a great match,
Right.
But they didn't know what to do. But let's not forget, at this point, Guerrero has passed away.
That's true.
And Benoit is not in the right frame of mind at all. And I think I think we're gonna, we're gonna speak about his death, right? Like,
yeah, we're talking about it now. Yeah, we're gonna wrap up. That'll be like the main subject. So yeah, so going back, Eddie passed away, of course, in the fall of '05, and yeah, and he was as you saw on the Vice documentary, and it's been very well highlighted. It's not a secret. He took the death very 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 negative, very very bad, to the point where I don't think he had time to grieve. Right? I believe the funeral happened whatever a week, whatever, two later, and then a couple of days later, right back on the road he went. Right? Never had time to kind of grieve. He had, every time he would visit Vicky Guerrero at the house, he'd go up to Eddie's gym and cry and cry and cry. What are your thoughts, man? How do you? I mean, I'm not a counselor, but very handled poorly. What are your thoughts on that?
He should have taken. Sorry, he should have taken some time off, and got proper therapy to help grieve. Just going back to like trying to go back to normal life and not speaking to anybody about it. I think that really hurt him. Right. Like as mentioned in the Vice documentary, like if he was alone, he would be like emotional, but then when he was around all the guys, like nothing, no emotion at all. So right. that kind of hurt him in the long run. I think taking time off and getting the proper like help that he needed would have he probably would still be here. We don't know.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I think what's unfortunate is that Benoit and wrestling, Benoit, that's all he knew. Wrestling was all he knew. Yeah. And he didn't know how to cope with it. Right. So it's kind of like if you keep doing the same thing every day, because that's all you know, like you can't switch it up. You can't switch it up at all. So Benoit, if I was Vince during that time, I would have given him time off. Yeah. Especially seeing, like, if you see the tribute show, Eddie Guerrero's tribute show, my gosh, the way that Benoit cried, it was like seeing a little kid. Right. I was watching like a little, like he first started when they interviewed him in regards to it. He started off strong and he was talking about it. He seemed like he was in good spirits, but all of a sudden you just saw him break down. And the way he was crying, it was extremely sad to watch. And just knowing that Eddie Guerrero has such an impact on his life, and he didn't know what to do. So at this point, like, you get him some sort of therapy, and just give him some time off, because look at all these guys. They're on the road. They're around, I don't think he was on drugs or anything, but you're still on the road. You're not coping with whatever it is you're going through. You're just thinking about wrestling nonstop. And yeah, it keeps you busy. It keeps your mind busy. It's kind of like if you want to go to work after something happened in your life that you don't want to think about. You kind of go to work so you won't have to think about it. You keep your mind busy. But this was a loss. And, this was someone who was close to him, like a brother. And he just never took time off for it. And it wasn't right. And at the end of the day, this is what you have to think about. Like, now, back then, we didn't think about mental illness the way we think about it now.
Oh, no, of course.
And if we saw this back, let's say this happened now, and seeing the way Benoit was during these tribute shows and stuff, and just seeing him, like, how he was physically and mentally, you would realize, like, this guy needs help. This guy needs help. And I think, I don't want to put the blame on WWE or Vince or anybody, but they dropped the ball on that one, man.
Yeah.
They dropped the ball.
I agree. If that would have happened today, concussion protocol, even on any injury now, right? And CTE, all that exposure with the NFL, I agree. Yeah. They would have caught it early, and he would have.
Look how they make guys retire because of it. Corey Graves is retired because of the amount of concussions he got. And I think there was a documentary on the network, like, of NXT, when they told him that he had to retire, and how, like, emotional and everything that he was. But now is when they're looking out. Corey Graves, yeah. Now is when they're really looking out for everyone's health. Because back then they didn't know about CT, man. All the chair shots to the head. And,
Yeah, exactly.
And look at ECW. If you put your hands up to block a chair shot, you were a pussy.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, the crowd will call you pussy. The guys in the back, oh, you're a fucking pussy. You put your hand up. But it's like, nobody was thinking of the long-term effects of brain injuries. And according to, the doctors that did tests on Benoit's brain, he had the freaking brain of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient.
Right.
He had the same brain damage as, like, Aaron Hernandez. And look, Hernandez was going on a killing spree.
Right.
So I know a lot of people want to say, like, oh, maybe he didn't really do this, but the evidence is there, man. The brain damage that he had shows that he was capable of doing something like this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't there mentally.
Right.
Obviously, he did what he did, and he planned it out. He planned it out because he actually had the mental ability or the capability to text Chavo.
The dogs are in the back, right?
Not Brad Armstrong, Scott Armstrong.
Scott Armstrong. Yep.
According to the documentary, that he was actually letting them know where the dogs were, and this was planned out on his part. Yeah. I don't know what caused him and what led him to do that. I don't know if he had an argument with women or he was he just wanted to end it all and didn't want his family to suffer in that way. I don't know. None of us know.
Right, exactly.
None of us know. But like with this whole, the fact that he had a mind or a brain of a 85-year-old, and also he was going through whatever he was going through in regards to Eddie Guerrero. That's a lot for a man to take, man.
Of course.
And he had no days off. He didn't have. He had no time to mourn or to like think about how to become a better person mentally or whatever it is. Like, he had no time, and it was just too much for a man to bear. And it sucks, man. Sucks.
I know. Yeah. So obviously we know what he did the 2 days prior to Vengeance, and his career life cut abruptly short. Man. So all right, so I'm gonna close out here. We spent a lot of time, almost an hour and a half on Chris Benoit. I know.
Oh, shit.
I know.
Still not enough time to go over his
know. We could go on actually another 30 minutes but I'm gonna cut it here. Vibes, what are your final thoughts on Benoit and the whole situation? And then we'll close it with Sosa and we'll wrap it up.
Great talent, amazing worker. Just one tragedy that altered professional sports and destroyed the legacy of one person. There's really not much else to say about him other than the thought of he's not Hall of Fame worthy because of what he did, in my opinion. I mean,
it's true. Sosa, close us out.
Let me tell you, man. Great talent, a man who went through so much in his life personally, especially later on in his career, that it eventually destroyed his life and his legacy. And it's very unfortunate, but it also opened up a lot of eyes on what and I'm not talking about professional wrestling.
Yeah.
About
sports in general.
Sports in general, It opened up a lot of eyes on what all these hits to the head can do. And just to rewind a little bit, Chris Nowinski was a huge advocate.
Yeah.
This topic.
Yeah.
He brought it up,
Yeah.
and he's a spokesperson for it. He still is, and it opened up a lot of eyes, and pretty much, it sucks that a tragic event like this had to happen in order for people to realize that they need to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
I think of guys like, one guy that comes to mind is Mick Foley. We all know Mick Foley has taken the most brutal chair shots in the head that I've ever seen. And like I'm glad that he's still good. He can he's one of the smartest men in the business.
Right.
But I just hope it doesn't have a negative effect on him later on in his life. But again, now there's more awareness towards this topic, and also mental illness and all that stuff. Like WWE has taken a lot of precaution on wrestlers that have suffered concussions. I don't know. I think you guys mentioned Ziggler when he won the world title. We talked about it. He cashed in his Money in the Bank, won the world championship. Everybody went crazy. Boom. Ended up getting a concussion against Alberto Del Rio, and boom, he was stripped because he can't go. You can't let these guys continue to go because look, like your arm breaks, your leg breaks, whatever. Like it'll heal, but you could still function. You know what I mean? But when this goes out of commission,
that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
This controls your whole body. This controls your thoughts. This controls your movements. Your brain controls your whole body, man. And it's like your engine. If you're sorry if I'm gonna curse, but
it's okay.
If your engine dies out, bro, you can't run. You can't do anything with it.
Right.
And I think thankfully now people are more aware of that. And but Benoit, us wrestling fans, we will never forget that guy. Never forget Benoit. But his work will never be forgotten. How about that?
Yeah.
His work will never be forgotten.
Right.
But what he did, he will not be. I don't even. It's hard to put into words because it's just so sad.
I know.
It's just a sad topic, man.
I know. All right. On that note, we're gonna. This is Jim Wrestle, Vibes, and Sosa signing out for Chris Benoit. Peace out, homie.
Dope.